My name is Mohammed Al-Ghabra. I'm 30 years old. I spent 9 months behind those walls as a prisoner between 2003 and 2004. I'm going to tell you my story. Memories. I have a lot of memories about my time in Belmarsh. It's a mixed feeling. Sometimes it's memories of loneliness, being away from my family, from my mother, from my sister, from the people that I'm close to, from the people that I love. Sometimes also I get memories of people I met and the impression they had on my life. And I know I left some people behind who are still in prison today. When I first went to prison in the beginning stages, it was very difficult. Sometimes I think, why am I even here? What have I done that deserves me being locked up and having my freedom taken away? And sometimes it'd be very lonely, being alone, not knowing. But the one thing that kept me going was my faith. One thing that kept me strong was my prayers. At the end of the day, I know I have done nothing wrong. And it's knowing that I have done nothing wrong and this is God's decree would keep me strong and would keep me focused and would keep me positive. So this is, this is my story, I guess. It's a bit tight in the corridor because the pram is here. Come in, brother. I was born in Syria, Damascus. From Syria we moved to Saudi Arabia and we lived there for 8 years, but that was my childhood. And from there we came to the United Kingdom. I was 8 years of age. We came as refugees, and I remember changing 3-4 schools in the first 1 year. Early teenagers, and I was a bit naughty maybe, I'd got in a bit of trouble at school. And eventually, after a lot of thought, I realized that I was going nowhere in my life. And at that time, I remember being young as well, it just hit me really badly, and I thought, I've just wasted the last 5 years chasing something that has no meaning. One day waking up and seeing yourself on a train and then thinking, how do I get on this train and where's this train going? And realizing that the train is moving very quickly and you don't have much time to realize, what you're doing. And this was the kind of shock that I got at that age. And that's what made me turn towards my faith. I used to be involved in a group. Well, we're not really a group, an effort. It's called Tablighi Jama'ah in the sense it's called it's a group of people who remind each other. Part of the work was to go and to invite others to the principles that you learn. When I first traveled to Pakistan, it was in '98, and that time actually was very different. After 2001, any Muslim who would travel constantly abroad, and especially to countries such as Pakistan, would automatically hit a radar list. And he would be scrutinized with a different lens, and I guess this is where my trouble started, because I was naive as well. It didn't really bother me, because I go with the philosophy that everything we do it for our Creator, and whatever other people think, as long as I'm not doing something wrong to support their thought, then I don't really care what they think. And I guess this got me in trouble, because the other thing that I refuse to do is I refuse to paint people by an image that's fed to me through media, through society. So if media tells me, for example, that these group of people are terrorists, I refuse to accept this unless I know for sure, unless I see it with my own eyes or I do my own research. I'm not going to paint everyone under the same brush, you know, and we see it every day. If someone was labeled an extremist by the media, it would not stop me from going and listening to them, because I would have to make up my own mind to what an extremist is. It's not enough for me to see a 5-minute clip of a person who may speak for hours and hours on end and make judgment on that person for 5 minutes based on 5-minute clip that I've seen in the media. And I guess this is where I became classified to the authorities as an extremist. I've never been presented with evidence to support that. Why do they really consider me as an extremist or a fundamentalist or a funder of terrorism? This has never been presented to me in a form of evidence. This allegations been made against me, but never proven or never brought forward in a form of evidence where I can answer specific allegations. Instead, it's something that I've been labelled, and it's caused me a lot of problems, obviously, in terms of the way I live my life. And in 2003 was when I first got raided, you know, and I was arrested, and I'd spent 9 months in Belmarsh prison, and I was never presented with a true reason to why I was actually raided. I was given a brief, you know, that they suspected me to be involved in some kind of fundraising to terrorism, but I was never given evidence that this is what we believe you did. How do you answer this allegation? I mean, initially when they came, they were quite. They weren't very aggressive. Yes, they broke my door down, which was aggressive. But when they actually entered, you know, they spoke to me, and the first thing they said to me is, you know, we have to take you away. They never really threw anything at me straight away to say that this is what we accuse you of. No, they actually went into my house and they were searching for things that they could find to ask me about. And this is what had happened initially. So, you know, I had in the interview rooms, I had, you know, questions raised about things that they found in the house. It wasn't things that they gave me, that the reasons they arrested me in the first place. It was more of, you know, they're in my house and they're gathering things from my house to present to me, to ask me about. And various books and things, cassettes. Why do you have this? Who do you listen to? Where do you pray? You know, just very general questions. Obviously, I don't want to discuss everything, to be honest, because even as we speak, I still have a legal challenge to everything that's happened to me. So I don't want to go into too much depth. You see, at that time, you have to remember, I was alien to this. I've never been involved with the law, with the police. So I didn't really know what my rights were, what I could do, what I couldn't do. But it was 2 charges, and if I remember correctly, before we got to trial, they even changed. One of the charges was dropped, and another one was kept. But to me, these charges were very vague in the terms that I can't remember the exact charge, but it was something like possession of an item that was that could have been used, you know, for the instigation or preparation for an act of terrorism. But it was such a charge where even a train map or an underground map, it could be argued that this underground map is in your possession and you have to tell us why. After I got charged, I was taken to Belmarsh prison. After a while, we had a court date, and from that court date, we went to court, and then they set a trial date, and that trial date was 9 months away. All the material the prosecution had was brought forward in front of a jury, and I had my opportunity to to answer those allegations in front of the jury, and the jury, unanimously agreed that I was not guilty. And I remember when I saw the jury, none of them were Muslim. So at the time I was slightly worried, because I felt that, if the prosecution presents something, then it'll be very hard for them to appreciate whether it's the correct presentation or not, because they were non-Muslims and they don't have any experience with the religion. This is what I thought at the time, but again, I put my trust in Allah Azza wa Jalla. I put my trust in God, and I thought at the end of the day, I would just try my best to speak my side as with the truth, and the rest is up to Allah. I would just do my effort. It was a difficult time. My trial lasted for a week, but Alhamdulillah, at the end of it, the truth prevailed, Alhamdulillah, and I was found not guilty. This is my old school, my secondary school. I was here from the age of 11 till 16. A lot of changes now, improvements, different faces, different people, different teachers. This brings back memories. Yeah. After the verdict of me being not guilty, and one thing I had a lot of friends, Alhamdulillah, at the time, and a lot of them came even to the court to support me. And I remember after the 9 months, I had a group of friends, and they took me home on the underground, and it was weird, it was kind of an alien feeling, being on the public transport again. Even though it's only been 9 months, you could notice every little change, because I wasn't used to, the transformation from being inside prison to suddenly having all this freedom. And at the time I thought that's it, it's over. But even things like getting my property back, the things that they took off me the first time round, till now I don't have my property. Because then I'd realised that even though I was found not guilty by the jury, that for some reason the authorities did not see me as not guilty. It wasn't over for me in terms of how the authorities viewed my situation. They still were convinced that I'm a criminal in their eyes, even though the court decided otherwise. And then I remember then trying to find work, and I remember it was very hard, because 9 months of my life has been missing. So, and it would be very difficult to explain to someone, well, what have you been doing in the last 9 months? You're not working, and then you'd have to tell them, well, I was in prison, on remand. And it doesn't really look good on a CV if you tell someone I was in prison, charged with terrorism for and I'd spent 9 months on remand, regardless what the outcome was. I remember once I went to pick up a friend from the airport. It was Birmingham Airport, and I had a friend coming from Syria who was a distant relative. Just before he came out of the immigration, a man approached me and gave me a card, and it was MI5, and that was a very, very big shock to me, because again, it was a new experience that I didn't even know what MI5 meant at the time. That's when they first approached me, and when I tried to find out why, initially they said to me that they're here to try to help bridge the gaps between the Muslim communities and the intelligence services, so that they can understand the Muslims better. But then afterwards I realized that this wasn't really, they just said that to me so I can speak to them and give them more information about how I felt the Muslim community was being treated in the UK, and what I felt what the problems were. Even though I'd met them twice, I stopped meeting them, and I told them, look, I don't think this is productive, because it's just one way. Obviously you can't be trying to help someone if it's a one-way procedure. On foresight now, everyone knows that MI5 is an intelligence gathering organization. So obviously, whenever they approach someone, they want them either to work for them or to spy for them. So, but at the time, I didn't really realize, this is what exactly they stood for. So after a while, when I came to realize, I told them I don't want to work for you. And when I went to Dubai, they met me again in Dubai, and it was a big shock because now I'm in a foreign country, and I have these, guys coming from England. And then I remember they said some things to me. They said, for example, that, we want to help you because we have reports that the Americans are after you, and if they grab you, we don't know what they'll do with you. So it was more like a threat. I remember going away from that and thinking, well, if it's not like I have, I've just been into prison, and 2 years later my life is still the same. I'm still feeling like I'm in a prison, but now the borders are just much bigger, the boundaries. So when I come back to the UK, they again met me at the airport, and this time they gave me an ultimatum. They said, you either work for us or you cooperate with us. I can't remember the exact offer, but or your life will become very much more difficult. And then I remember getting a phone call, one of the people that had met me, and he said to me, well, what have you decided? And I said, look, and I explained to them before that, look, as a Muslim, we can't spy on each other. I can't remember the exact date, but I think it was June 2005 now. Then after that phone call, when I'd said that, it was May 2005, I think, when I'd said to them that, no, I'm not willing to work for you. A few days after that, my house was raided again, but this time I was not arrested. And at that same time, another 5 friends of mine had their properties raided in connection to me, but no one was arrested, and no one was charged, and no one was questioned. To me, it was more of a hassle. Yeah, I'll tell him. Yeah, that's not a problem. Okay, no problem, inshallah. See you then. Assalamu alaikum. Since 2005, my social life has been affected. 5 of my friends who used to associate with me and know me, they had their houses raided for no reason given. No reason was given, just because they associated with me. People still like me, but there's always this fear that maybe if I'm shown to be his associate, I might suffer in some way. My family might get hassled, I might get harassed. So a lot of people that I know, they've slowly have distanced themselves, at least in public, a lot of times. Yeah, you're right. Assalamu alaikum. Hi, alhamdulillah. Bro, could I have 1 large donut and chips?
Large donut and chips.
With a Pepsi.
Pepsi, yeah?
Yeah, donut and chips, yeah? Okay. I'll have that upstairs, yeah?
Yeah, okay. All right.
Inshallah. It has made a big change in the way I socialize with people. So where I used to have 2-3 friends always with me, we go out, eat everywhere, I'd hardly eat alone. Now, a lot of times, I end up eating up my own or with my family. But I don't have a very big social life. There are some friends, but it's very little compared to before. When they raided the houses, we weren't allowed to take anything with us apart from a change of clothes. So we had no money, we had no change of clothes apart from one. And we were taken to this hotel, and there wasn't no food provisions provided. And they said when I inquired from the police relation officer who was there, I said that, look, we have no food. He said, well, why don't you buy your own food? I said, we weren't even allowed to take any money with us. How could we buy food? It was very... and eventually they said, okay, we'll give you breakfast. I said, well, do you live on 1 meal a day? This is my mother, my friends, and their families. There was a pregnant woman there and her husband. So, it was very... I felt it was very harsh treatment of all these people who did nothing wrong. and who weren't even arrested or who weren't charged or accused of anything, just because I knew them, or just because they knew me. So eventually they agreed to 2 to 3 meals a day. Then when I got home, I found the United Nations letter saying that I was under sanctions. And that was a new era in my life because I didn't realize what sanctions were at the time. And, that carried on. And I remember when I read this letter, it said all my assets had been frozen. And I thought to myself, what assets do I have? And it was I had one bank account with £54 in there. To me, it's something that was designed by the United Nations to impose on countries, not on individuals. And suddenly this law that was designed to impose on a country is being applied to an individual. So I had I wasn't allowed to have money in my pocket. I wasn't allowed to earn. I wasn't allowed to be given money. And anything that deemed to be an asset at the time, I wasn't allowed to have. So it took about a year. To sort out, because part of the sanctions was that I was allowed to have basic finances which allowed me to survive. But I remember it taking about a year before I could come to a stage where I had ability to hold money in my hand. And at the first time I was only allowed £10 in cash. This is just the sanctions that's been placed on me, this claim that I'm a banker or whatever. It's not something that I've been charged with and found guilty of. It's something that's been claimed. And I have these sanctions as a result of that. But it's not something that I have gone through a legal process, and I haven't been found guilty of these allegations. These are just allegations that are there, and I bear the brunt of the allegations. Now, I have to account for every penny that I spend. So if I buy anything, I have to keep the receipt, and I have to fill a report every month, and I have to submit it with all my accounts for what I'd purchased during this month. Thank you. Thank you. Well, to be honest, at the time I wasn't really looking to get married, and marriage was not on my mind because for a couple of reasons. One, I thought that who would want to marry someone with these restrictions, and it started with a friend actually who knew me and who knew my circumstances, and he was always telling me you should get married, but I always used to say to him, look, it's not possible with the situation I'm in. So he actually phoned me once and he said to me, he lives very far, and he said to me that he's in London and he wants to see me. So I was quite shocked, and I thought something had happened, or he had a problem. So I'd got ready, I'd left the house, and then he took me with him. He said we have to go somewhere, and he wouldn't tell me where we were going. And then eventually we went to some location in London, I think it was Hackney or somewhere, and then he went to this house and he said, yeah, there is someone here I want you to meet, as someone's father. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, I've already mentioned your situation to them, and they would like to consider you for their daughter for marriage. And I was like, okay. So I was very embarrassed. We went and met the father, and then the father told me, look, it's not my decision. I just wanted to see you as initial to get a brief character reference. And then it's going to be my daughter's decision, so I guess if you meet her, and then you can take it from there, both of you. I think it was 2 weeks after that, we arranged a meeting with the girl who I got married to. We met, and I liked her, and she liked me. I don't know why, but she did. Unlucky woman, but no, she was happy, and then I guess, alhamdulillah, now I have a child. So You know, we're happy. Alhamdulillah, we're very happy to hear that.